I'm humorous self-help author C.J. Grace, writing and speaking about infidelity and breast cancer. Well, I was living a charmed life, my dream job as a journalist with the BBC in Britain, then a transfer to China Radio International in Beijing, and a fairy tale falling in love with an American I met there. Our 25th wedding anniversary was the best one ever, spent in Hawaii. Little did I know that just 2 years later, both my health and my marriage would be in tatters. My husband was openly carrying on an affair with a woman half his age whom he refused to give up, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer for the second time. I carried the dreaded BRCA gene that Angelina Jolie had believed could be a death sentence. It was a double whammy that left me reeling. When I called my husband out about the infidelity, he offered me a part-time wife position. I'd be perfectly happy spending 2 or 3 days a week with her and the rest of the week with you, he declared. I actually considered his proposal for several months, trying to get my head around it. Then I was diagnosed with breast cancer. While I was undergoing chemotherapy, my husband was in Europe with his girlfriend. There was no way I could stomach a part-time husband. I had to let him go. But for my own sanity, for my health, for my peace of mind, I had to truly forgive him to break the emotional hold he had on me. Well, that was easier said than done, but I developed a 6-part plan to try to get out of that pit of devastation that I felt. The first thing I did was to find confidants and mentors with my best interests at heart. People whom I could vent my deepest, darkest feelings to, who would keep things confidential, and who I could rely on to give me some good advice. The second thing I did was to rebuild my circle of friends, because I found that almost everybody I knew was connected to my husband, either through the joint business that we shared, or who were just friends more of my husband than of me. I'd let go of all the friends I'd had prior to my marriage. So I had to rebuild my circle and find friends both old and new. The third thing I did was laughter therapy, because if you don't laugh, you cry. And having been brought up in Britain on a diet of Monty Python's Flying Circus, that absurd humor helped me get through everything. Because whatever happens to you, however dark, there's always some kind of absurd humor to it. And if you see that, and if you watch comedies rather than depressing dramas, it will lift your spirits. I even gave up watching the news, which was something that was pretty amazing for me as a former BBC journalist, because I'd always followed the news. But it's all bad news, because good news is boring. It doesn't make the headlines. It's tragedy that's exciting, and that's what the news tends to cover. The fourth thing I did was I tried to love my body and become beautiful. Now, by that I didn't mean that I was going to become a supermodel or anything like that, because that is never going to happen. I mean more internal beauty and looking after things like sleeping enough, getting enough sleep, and eating well, eating good, nutritious food, and exercising to banish the blues. There's that awful cliche of a woman who's been dumped by her boyfriend that you see in the movies. There she is lying in bed watching television, spooning ice cream from a tub. That is probably the worst thing you can do to lift your spirits. I remember a friend of mine was suffering such a bout of sadness she could barely get out of bed in the morning. And I told her to just force herself to have at least 15 minutes of outdoor exercise, walking in nature in a local park every day. And she told me that she did do that, and it made a massive difference. So outdoor exercise, if you can do that, is absolutely key to getting over any kind of depression. Very, very helpful. The fifth thing I did was to try and find my passion and become more of a hedonist, because we women, you know, we tend to keep our nose to the grindstone, and we're busy ministering to our families, ministering to our husbands, helping the children. And if we have a business in the family, a family business, then we're ministering to that too. And we rarely look up and decide, well, I need to do something that is for my own pure enjoyment. That's so necessary. You have to find something that makes your heart sing. It could be art, it could be music, it could be volunteering for a cause that you truly believe in, and that will make you feel more fulfilled and happier and more content with your life. The sixth thing I did, which was probably the hardest, and that one is still very much a work in progress, is to try and become more mindful. Because yesterday's gone, tomorrow doesn't exist, today is all there is. And it's so easy to be churning over what you did in the past, wishing you'd done things differently, or worrying about the future and thinking, oh my God, how am I going to manage? What's going to happen? All of this. Well, you aren't living in the present. You're just existing. And it's so important to try to do some kind of practice that helps you become more aware of the now and to be more mindful. And the more mindful we are, the happier and more contented we do tend to be. One of the things I do as a committed chocoholic is that I use an exercise with a piece of chocolate to develop mindfulness. And I have it actually on my website if you go to cjauthor.com. I didn't invent it. They use it in Britain in schools, and if kids can do it, so can we. So mindfulness is a really great skill to have, whether you're even not going through any adversity, because so many of us are just not living in the present, not looking at what's in front of our nose. We could have the most amazing scenery, we could be in the most wonderful company, and our minds are elsewhere. So it's really important to learn to become more mindful. So for Adulterer's Wife, How to Thrive Whether You Stay or Not, that was my first book, and I wrote that inspired by what I'd gone through when I found out my husband was unfaithful. The mantra of that book was that the best revenge is to get past the need for it. But my second book I started to write after I developed breast cancer for the second time. That one is My Wild Ride, How to Thrive After Breast Cancer and Infidelity. And the mantra of that book is information is power. That was my cancer mantra. And I couldn't rely on my husband to support me. His attentions were elsewhere. I had to be my own advocate. And my journalist skills certainly came in handy to research my treatment options. For example, I negotiated a less toxic chemo cocktail with my oncologist for my triple negative tumor. I got my oncologist to agree to giving me carboplatin and Taxol rather than adriamycin and Taxol. Then, when I was advised to have a double mastectomy by my surgeon, I turned that down too and opted for a lumpectomy. A lot of my friends thought I was absolutely nuts to do that, but I'd come across quite a number of women who had developed implant illness after breast reconstruction, and I didn't want to stay flat after a mastectomy, as some women are choosing to do after that operation. At any rate, at least for my particular circumstances, the survival statistics didn't seem that different between a lumpectomy and a mastectomy. One of the most dangerous things I found about my BRCA gene profile was the risk of ovarian cancer. And the survival statistics for ovarian cancer are much worse than those for breast cancer. So I was told that I needed to have my ovaries removed right away. But I chose to wait till I'd gone through menopause because I didn't want to be slammed into that artificially. But I did have the CA-125 blood test and ultrasounds of my ovaries regularly before that, just to make sure that everything was okay. I didn't go for a full hysterectomy as some BRCA women choose to do, because I didn't really like some of the potential side effects I saw from having a hysterectomy, and I had come across some friends who had had pain and other problems after going through that operation. I did an awful lot of research about cancer, both for my book and for my own treatment options. I tended to use DuckDuckGo and SwissCows.com rather than Google as my search engine, because I felt the results, at least in terms of alternative medicine, were less unbiased. I also read a lot of books. One which had an unforgettable title was called Dressed to Kill: The Link Between Bras and Breast Cancer by Sidney Ross Singer and his wife. They say that the link between bras and breast cancer is stronger than that between smoking and lung cancer. And I found the research they detailed in their book to be quite compelling. They say that toxins tend to collect in fatty tissue. And where do we women have fatty tissue? In our breasts. And normally the lymph system will flush those toxins out, but if you have a bra, it can constrict lymph flow, and that can lead to pain and cysts and even tumors in your breast. Sadly, the mainstream cancer community will not accept any link between bras and breast cancer. Correlation does not equal causation, they say, and instead they point to a study that was done in 2014 that showed no link between bras and breast cancer. But that study had no control group, no group of women who did not wear bras. So that would be like studying the link between smoking and lung cancer and not including any non-smokers as a control group in that study. Well, according to the American Cancer Society, the survival statistics for non-metastatic early stage breast cancer are close to 100%. That being said, cancer is a crapshoot and there are no guarantees. Whatever you choose to do, whether conventional, alternative, or both, the outcomes are unknown. And I would never presume to tell you what you should be doing. It's a very personal decision. And of course, I'm not a doctor, so I would have no right to tell you what you should be doing. But even so, I was besieged with all kinds of unsolicited advice about what I should do for my cancer. Some people insisted chemo and radiation is toxic and doesn't work. Other people told me that the alternative therapies that I chose to do as well were pure quackery. I couldn't really satisfy anybody. I had to really go with my gut and do what I felt personally was right for me. And I would have needed more than 72 hours in a day to do all the anti-cancer stuff that folks insisted I had to do. Cancer, on top of a splintering marriage, showed me that I have an expiration date and nothing is permanent. So many people wait till tomorrow to do what they really want in life, and tomorrow never comes. On my deathbed, would I care how tidy my kitchen was, how many emails I'd written, how many posts I'd done on social media? No. I would have wanted to have had a life full of love and laughter. I would have wanted a life that was creatively and spiritually fulfilling. I would have wanted to have had purpose on this earth, however long or short my time on it was. So, I hope you've enjoyed what I've had to say today, or at least found it useful. And I want to thank Arijit and everyone at the Women's League of the World Leader Summit for inviting me to speak at the Women's Day event. I'm CJ Grace, and you can find out more about me and get some free resources by visiting cjauthor.com. That's cjauthor.com. Thank you.